This podcast contains graphic descriptions that some listeners may find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. Now, with that being said, welcome to the Mortal Musings podcast.
Right, let's do this.
So did you hear about that UFC fighter that got mugged? This isn't a joke, this is a real story.
No, I did not.
There's a UFC fighter, yeah. Well, like I said, she was mugged. Well, the guy attempted to mug her, yeah.
And got lumps kicked out of him.
She beat the shit out of him and kept him in a hole until the police arrived. Of all the people...
Who was the fighter? Amanda Nunes.
No. Polyana Viana? Have you heard of her?
No.
Yeah. Beat the shit out of him and held him until police arrived. Picked the wrong person to fuck with, didn't he?
Just a bit. Scares me with them UFC fighters, though.
She says, he took the punches very quickly. I think he was scared. Like, she said he didn't really react. He kind of just took it and then waited for the police to arrive.
Well, I don't think someone takes punches very well. It's just, they don't have a choice.
Yeah, but like, this guy claimed he had a gun and she was kind of like, you know, you're too close to me. You're not going to be able to draw it in time or anything like that if he did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, fair play to her.
Yeah. We've got a bit more news. Got another shout out. We have a new Patreon member. So a shout out to Andrea.
Thank you, Andrea.
Again, we're working on it. We will. We're
not just stringing you along. We promise.
We will have content on Patreon at some point. We really want to put out the right thing.
Yeah, we don't want to just throw out shite for the sake of it. You know what I mean? We want to make sure it's still of a half decent quality for you guys.
See, I know we're a true crime podcast, but I don't want to do more true crime. I don't mind discussing it in some way.
Yeah. Or maybe a more light-hearted look at crime, you know?
I think it should take the muzzle off me a bit for Patreon.
Mm.
Have it a bit more...
Stop saying that, like I'm constantly trying to silence you.
She does. She tells me what I have to cut out.
Yeah, you have to ask to go to the bathroom as well, don't you? Can I please have some water?
Yeah. So, what we're doing today?
Well, today, Neil, we're going to take a look at the survival of Holly Dunn.
I don't know that one.
We haven't done a survival yet.
Yeah, we have.
What survival did we do?
That Jodie.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, this was a survival from a serial killer. Like, she was left for dead type of situation.
Okay. Who was the killer?
The railroad killer.
No, I don't know that one.
Well, if you don't know, you're going to know.
Railroad, is that a popular one or?
I'd say a lot of people know it. He's not as well publicised as others, possibly due to the fact that he used quite a few different aliases. So,
okay.
You know. So, on the 29th of August, 1997, Holly Dunn and her boyfriend Chris Mayer were attending a party, not far from their University of Kentucky campus. After a little while, they decided to break off from the party, you know, just to spend some time together.
Mm-hmm.
So they grabbed Chris's backpack, threw a few beers in it, and headed out. Now, they decided to head down the railway tracks. And seeing as I've just told you the name of the killer, I'm sure you can guess what happens next.
Wait, so there's a serial killer going around called Railroad Killer?
Yeah, well, there was, yeah.
So people decided, I'm going to take some beers and go down to the railroad track.
Well, the thing about this guy, like I said, railroad killer, he was all over the place. And they didn't necessarily know he was connected to these different murders at the time.
Oh, okay.
So they grabbed Chris's backpack, like I said, they threw a few beers in and headed down the tracks. And while there, they just sat, relaxed and chatted for a bit.
Mm.
Now, after a while, they decided to head back to the party and made their way back down the tracks.
I've just thought, sorry.
Mm?
I don't know why this has popped into my head. This is how my head works. Listeners are going to get like a better perspective of how my head works.
Into the mind of Neil.
Imagine you owned Target, yeah?
Target the shop?
Yes.
Okay.
Start a rumour, but there's a Walmart serial killer.
Okay.
So people don't go to Walmarts, they go to Target.
You don't be giving them ideas now, Neil.
That's a fucking brilliant idea.
Well, I hope you never go into business. For fuck's sake. So, as they're walking back down the tracks, a man appears. He'd been crouched behind an electrical box, presumably waiting for them to walk past. He asks them for money, and they tell him they don't have any. And, they're college students. They probably don't have a lot of fucking cash, Now, this entire time, he's holding what they think is either an ice pick or a screwdriver to Chris.
Sorry, just to elaborate on my thing.
Mm-hmm.
Actually kill people in Walmart.
Well, don't encourage that behaviour.
Well, no, I'm just saying that's how it'd work. So, because otherwise Walmart customers would be like, I've been shopping there for the past 36 years. No one's ever died. Oh,
so you're just really trying to set the scene. You really want to push this narrative.
Yeah. Say there's a Walmart serial killer. Look, every Saturday at 9 a.m.
So it's not so much a rumour as you want to commit murder.
For my business.
I like how you interrupted the story to go back to your plot to fucking murder.
I think I'm onto something. Not to that extent, but I bet businesses do that. Not murder.
We'd hope not. He then... fuck's sake. He then tells Chris to get down on his knees. He searches through Chris's backpack, and then he uses the backpack to actually tie Chris's hands behind his back.
I seriously thought you were going to say beat him with the backpack.
No, they'd already drank the beers. It wasn't that heavy now.
Now, Megan actually got threatened once.
I did.
What did they threaten to do?
Smash a bag of cans over my head. Yeah. It was one of those, you ever encounter those people that they're just trying to start a fight? I literally walked past this woman.
Woman.
Girl.
I'm going to say.
She was a few years older than me. She might have been an adult at that stage, but I was about 16 at the time. Young woman? I don't know.
I've met her.
Yeah,
she's got a face like a bulldog chewing a wasp.
She's rough. Yeah, she would beat the shit out of you. So I was literally like, no. Yeah, like it was one of those situations where I was like, she could kick the fuck out of me. Let's just try and get out of this situation.
I think she could kick the fuck out of me.
Yeah, no good.
But this is how petty she is. I used to work in a vape shop and she came in and she stole a sample.
Okay.
I watched her take it. It was a fucking sample.
Yeah.
They were there free to take and she slyly took it. It's like you just nicked a sample.
Well done. So, yeah, ties Chris's hands behind his back with the backpack, and then he takes off his belt and uses that to tie Holly's hands behind her back. He grabs Chris and Holly and he pulls them off the tracks, through the gravel and into the grass. Now, at this point, Chris and Holly are looking at each other in complete disbelief that this is happening.
Yeah.
Holly is terrified. It's dark, it's disorientating, the way he seemingly appeared out of nowhere. And it's obvious that he's not just looking for money. He clearly had much more sinister intentions. Which, you would. Like, I'm sure she was thinking, this is it. I'm going to die. Like...
Or at least assaulted.
Yeah. So she says to the guy, why are you doing this? What do you want? Do you want credit cards or ATM cards? She tells him that he can take their car and it's parked just down the street. She was just so desperate to make sense of what is happening and what he wanted. After this, the attacker rips up a shirt and uses it to gag Chris and Holly. Now, Holly pushed her tongue forward, so the gag wasn't really effective. And at this point, the attacker walks off and goes back up the tracks. Holly manages to get her hands free, but she wasn't able to get her feet free. But at least her hands are free and she's able to take Chris's gag out.
Yeah.
So Chris and Holly are able to have this quick little talk while he's away, and they're running through all the possibilities of how they can actually get out of this situation. Are you able to get free? If so, do we just leg it? Can we actually make it out of this? And Chris was unable to free himself, and he's telling Holly through this, if you can get yourself untied, just go, just fucking run. As well as that, he's also trying to keep Holly calm, and he keeps reassuring her that it's all going to be okay.
So she's going to leave him tied up?
Yeah, because it's one of those things that he's coming back. You're still trying to figure out, do I kind of play along and hopefully he stays calm, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, but she could have had this surprise attack on him because she just has to sit there pretending she's tied up still. Serial killer, as soon as he turns his back, you have a rock, smack it up back of his head.
But you always say this. You always, right, so me and you are very different. I'm more like, I'm going to try and strategize.
No. I'll finish this off. I'm quicker to start swinging.
Yes.
I've seen what you do. You go limp. You just...
No, but this is the thing, Neil. You're constantly trying to say, well, I would have done this or you should have done that. You don't know until you're in the situation. And a lot of people, you included, could be in that if you were in this situation, could go quiet and think, right, what can I do? How can I...
Like, I know you don't know until you're in that situation, but one thing I do know, I wouldn't leave you there. If I'd managed to get myself free and I didn't manage to get you free in time, that's the sort of thing what would be going through my head, right? I'm going to pretend, I'm going to pick up this rock, I'm going to pretend I'm still tied up.
But Holly's not free. Her feet are still tied.
Oh, yeah. Well, she's not going to fucking be able to run. So that's even more of a reason to strategize something stationary.
But that's what they're sat there talking about it.
Oh.
Trying to, what can we do here?
Yeah.
So this is when the attacker comes back and he's carrying something. He walks up, stands directly over Chris and just drops a 50-pound rock directly onto his head.
No, he's done. Fucking hell.
Holly can hear gurgles coming from Chris and she asks the attacker to please turn his head so he doesn't choke. Their attacker replies with, "You don't need to worry about him, he's gone." He now approaches Holly and she said at this point, she knew he was about to rape her.
Yeah.
So this is when Holly starts swinging like fuck. She hit, she kicked and she screamed.
That's it. Get everything under them nails. Scratch the fuck out of him.
Well, going with you kind of having more of the, you got to fight your way out of it. The attacker is now getting agitated that she's putting up a fight.
Mm-hmm.
So he holds his weapon to her neck and tells her, "Look how easily I could kill you," before he stabs her in the neck.
Oh.
So with that, Holly stops. She realises that if she had any chance of surviving an attack from this guy, she had to be somewhat passive. But also with what you were saying about scratching, clawing, she digs her nails into the dirt, clawing at the ground in hopes that she can break off a nail so that, at least if he was to take her elsewhere, they'd know she had been there.
Yeah.
And as all of this is happening, Holly is making sure she's taking everything in. She makes mental notes of any tattoos, scars, every mark he has on his body. She was telling herself, let me remember everything about you that I can, because we'll get you at some point.
So at this point, is Chris dead?
Yeah.
Okay.
Chris has died. So, along with, like I said, Holly's trying to be somewhat passive to just not bring more aggression on her.
Yeah.
She tries to also communicate with her attacker. She asks him, sorry.
ASL.
She asked him if he would put her trousers back on for her, and he did. She then says to him, "I won't tell anyone, just please don't hurt me." She gives him a fake name and also tells him that she has friends and family that would want to see her again, and asks him if he has a family. At this point, he decides to pick up a wooden board and begins beating Holly with it. He beats Holly across her face, striking her about 5 or 6 times. She then puts her hands up to try and block the attack, and she turns to shield herself. And with that, he then beats her across the back of the head another 5 or 6 times.
So he was a bit savvy then. He knew what she was doing.
What do you mean?
Well, she asked. All she asked is, "Do you have family?"
Yeah, but
so
this
he
is...
knew.
Yeah, that was kind of like... Because I'm not saying you're wrong to want to fight. Fair play to you. You know what I mean? But sometimes it can go very badly for you when someone puts up a fight, can't it?
We don't know. I could sit and soil myself. I very much doubt it, especially if I'm in survival mode. I very much doubt it.
I I think it's just a fair argument. If you have the courage to get up and fucking swing, fair play to you. But if you're someone who's quiet and sits back and tries to observe everything, fair play to you. That's just as beneficial.
I don't know. My mentality of it is, I sit there and soil myself, I'm dead. If I get up and start swinging and lose, I'm dead. If I get up and start swinging and I win, I'm done. I'm out.
But if you sit there quietly, there could be a chance you survive. If you communicate with them and you start to humanize yourself.
Oh, yeah.
So after he'd beaten Holly across her face and the back of her head, she now passes out. Understandably.
Mm-hmm.
Her breathing becomes so shallow that the attacker must have thought she had died, and he leaves. After a while, Holly regains consciousness. She picks herself up and manages to walk to a nearby house. She knocks on the door, and thank fuck, someone answered. And at this point, it was between 1 and 2 in the morning, and the person who answered was a college student by the name of Chad. Now, I know what you're thinking. We all want to shit on him. He's a fucking frat boy, Chad. Yeah. You know what I mean? But don't worry, he's a good one. We like Chad.
Don't you think that'd make a good fucking, horror film?
What?
So, use this story, for instance, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So, he thinks she's dead. He's gone. She comes round. She goes to the nearby house looking for help. Imagine if it was him.
Oh.
That'd be a right fucking story.
Yeah. That's terrifying.
Right, so we need to get onto some directors and some writers.
Chad had actually been up studying that night when he spotted her in his front yard. He says she was covered in blood from head to toe. He described her as looking like, you know, when a boxer gets a cut and the blood is just streaming down their face.
Yeah. When you said blood from head to toe,
Carrie
came to mind straight away.
Did for me as well when he was describing it. He also said he didn't know exactly where the blood was coming from. It was just everywhere. So, obviously from his perspective, very startling, particularly at about 2 in the morning. As they wait for the paramedics, Chad keeps checking on Holly as she is going in and out of consciousness. He's trying to just, talk to her and keep her awake.
Yeah.
Holly just keeps saying to him, my friend is still out there. Make sure they know he's still out there. Obviously at this point, Holly's not in good shape.
Yeah.
And Chad said that there was no doubt in his mind that she was going to die. Holly was sent to the University of Kentucky Hospital, and her injuries were so bad that they were struggling to stop the bleeding. They didn't even shave her head, they literally just stapled the lacerations. Now, I asked Neil about this when I was writing this up because Neil has had his fair share of A&E trips. Yeah?
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say, no?
I do remember you asking.
Yeah, and you had said that you had never had a cut stapled. So I looked it up, and if a cut is wide, jagged, or fairly deep, or on the scalp, staples are used. So apparently you haven't had the worst cuts-wise. You've only had glue, was it? Or
glue, yeah, and stitches.
Stitches, yeah. Along with many cuts and bruises all over her face, the attack had left Holly with a broken eye socket and a broken jaw. So imagine the fucking pain she would have been in, all while trying to communicate with Chad what had happened to her and that Chris was still out there.
Yeah. Which is very difficult to talk with a broken jaw.
I know.
Fucking hell. Give her a pen and paper.
I say I know, I've never broken my jaw. I know, yeah, it's terrible.
Well, like when Muhammad Ali, when he broke his jaw in a fight with Ken Norton, he was like gritting his teeth together. To try and hold it, but this
hold it in place.
This is during a fight.
Yeah,
his jaw got broken round 1. He went 15 rounds with a broken jaw. The
nearest experience I have to that is after the dentist when your gob just doesn't close properly. I was just all like, that's the closest.
Yes, that's the same, Megan.
Is that getting cut out, Ricky?
That's the same.
Well, even with the severe pain and trauma that Holly had just experienced, she was on it. She was ready to talk to detectives and give them all the information she had.
She's a good victim then. No, I didn't mean that disrespect.
No, I know, it just sounds so bad.
Them victims who are fucking, they've got a vendetta. They're getting that fucking...
But that's what she said during the attack. I'm going to memorise all these things about you because we're going to get you.
Yeah, so I weren't being a dick like, be a good victim.
No, I know what you meant. I know what you meant. It just sounded so, oh, you good victim. But actually, I think Holly has said that she doesn't like the term victim. I can't speak, I'm sorry.
Survivor.
She prefers the term survivor. She told detectives that the attacker was male, possibly Hispanic, about 5'6" to 5'8", sort of wavy black hair, wore glasses, and said he wasn't particularly muscular but wiry, and that he had a Mexican accent. So obviously at this point, Holly is assuming that Chris has died, but she doesn't have a definitive answer. So she just asked her dad outright if Chris was dead. And, he told her that yes, Chris was gone. And as Holly was kept in hospital for 5 days, she didn't even get to attend Chris's funeral. So she never got a chance to say goodbye.
Fucking hell.
Once Holly's jaw had been wired shut, she was able to go home. And Holly credits her sister with really helping her get through this. When she just wanted to withdraw from everyone and everything, her sister Heather was there, and she was her rock. Now, over the months, police received a lot of calls and tips about the suspect. They also had a DNA sample that they were able to enter into the national database in hopes that a similar attack might flag up. A little over a year later, in December of 98, Dr. Claudia Benton was found after having been beaten, stabbed and raped, and this was in Houston. And unfortunately, Claudia did not survive the attack. Then in May of 99, Norman and Karen Cernick were found beaten to death in their bed. The attack was also in Texas, and a few weeks later, they were able to match the fingerprints found at this scene to the Claudia Benton murder. So they know we're dealing with a serial killer here.
Yeah.
And not just that, but like we said earlier, he was travelling through different states and extremely violent. So they're panicked. They need to get this guy. This was a manhunt. He was on the FBI's most wanted list. And jumping forward 2 years from Holly's attack, an arrest was made. A man by the name of Angel Resendez. He surrendered at the Mexico border in El Paso and was brought back to Houston to face charges. Now, I'm not going to get too much into this guy or the trial, as we will be covering him in our next episode. But I will say that Holly did testify at his trial, and that was something that Holly had wanted to do. She wanted the chance to tell her story.
Let me guess, he wouldn't even look her in the eye.
I take a guess now. And, she was the sole survivor of his attacks. The night before Holly was due to testify, she woke up during the night screaming and crying. Although this was something that Holly wanted to do, she was nervous to see this man again. Being face to face with him again is obviously a lot to deal with.
Yeah.
As Holly told the court of what had happened that night, she had tears in her eyes. The entire jury was said to have been in tears as well. It's a devastating story, not only for the fact that Holly went through a horrific ordeal, but Chris lost his life.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they were a young couple in college, just out having fun that night and spending time together, it should have been the best time of their lives. Now, like you said about the attacker, looking at her during the proceedings, Holly didn't look at her attacker during her testimony. It was only when the prosecutor asked Holly, "Is the person who attacked you in the courtroom today?" She answered yes. They asked her, "Can you tell us what he's wearing?" She turns, looks at him and replies, "He's wearing a white button-down shirt." And Holly recalls during her testimony she was so close to fainting when she looked directly at him.
Yeah, it's got to be nerve-wracking.
It's like, do you remember during the Richard Speck episode when we were talking about Cora and she points and she's like, "That man!"
Yeah.
Like, fucking love her. Like, that was brilliant. So, Angel Resendez was found guilty and sentenced to death. Holly chose not to attend his execution. She said she'd already seen one person die in front of her. She didn't need to see another. Which, that's such a nice way to look at it in terms of, she really wanted justice. She wanted this guy got, but she was like, "Do you know what? I don't need that." You know what I mean?
So, is there anything on it after? Like,
There
did she
is.
go on to do anything, or?
There is, and I will tell you now. So, since her attack, Holly has become an advocate for survivors. She's a spokesperson and co-founder of Holly's House, an advocacy centre for victims of sexual abuse and domestic violence. And they first opened their doors in 2008 and have since helped over 300 victims. Holly also works as a motivational speaker and trainer. And let me tell you, Neil, she's won a list as long as me fucking arm for all of her amazing work. Like, literally, it was like fucking big long page. She's also wrote a book about her experience called Soul Survivor, the inspiring true story of coming face to face with the infamous railroad killer. As for her personal life, Holly is now married and a mother to 2 boys. Her husband Jacob was actually the first guy she dated after the attack.
Fucking hell.
Good old Jacob. She said of Jacob, "I don't think Jacob even knows how much he helped me by just listening to me. There'd be days I would literally cry to him and, be upset, and he would just listen. And, really wouldn't judge me at all, which was great." Holly has also said, "I think to get over my survivor's guilt that I had to know that I live my life not just for me, but for Chris. I'm living my life for all of Resendez's victims, for all of them. And that I have to, or I want to, be the best person I can be and live the best life I can, because they didn't get the chance that I did. So I want to live for them, and I want them to be remembered." So fucking good woman, Holly.
Yeah.
Before we go, we can't forget about Chris. I can't find a huge amount about Chris, but what I can will include, obviously. So Chris seemed to be great crack. Holly told the story of how they first met. She said it was outside a bar and Chris smiled at her and just said, "I like your toenail colour." So she was like, fuck, okay. So she looked down at her feet and then at his. They were both wearing Birkenstocks and he also had silver nail polish on. So Chris credited his pedicure to one of his friends. Holly told him they looked great and they both had a laugh about it. I mean, and clearly from then on, they knew they were going to work together because, save money on nail polish. Yeah. Same taste. Brilliant. Another time when Chris was picking Holly up from her house, he stood outside with a megaphone and literally just shouted through it, "Holly Dunn, come out to the car." Now, it's so cute and sweet. Could you imagine if you did that to me? I'd be like, "Neil, you're going to piss off the fucking neighbours. What are you at?" But I'm not a lot of fun.
There was something I did outside and it pissed off the neighbours not that long back.
What?
Do you remember Norman had that? It was like a little rugby ball.
Yes.
And I booted it. And he didn't see it. He just heard this big bang. And it bounced off next door's window. Mm-hmm. And we... I can't remember what you said.
I didn't say anything.
I
just sort of walked in.
Well, we ran in. You said to her, like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
I told you not to. Told you to fucking calm down and punting the ball, like.
Fucking ran in the house like a couple of kids. You broke a window when you were a kid, didn't you?
I didn't mean to. It wasn't like I was just fucking hurling something through it. It was an accident. I'm not gone that way. Something else that Holly and Chris's friends have done to kind of keep his memory alive is they would often go to Chris's favourite places together. Her and his mates. I'm guessing just to kind of celebrate his life and just remember just how important he was to each of them.
Yeah.
Holly's also said she keeps a framed picture of Chris in her home, and she said that her 2 boys know just how special Chris was. So that's really nice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the survival story of Holly Dunn.
Strong woman.
Fair folk store.
Yeah. Can't wait for next week.
Oh yeah. Yeah, next week will be the railroad killer. We'll get into that little shit.
But yeah, good woman.
So, obviously, I have an oddity for you.
Okay.
This also took place in Kentucky. And it was actually suggested by Melissa from Ouch, Was That a Ghost?
Okay. Well, if this is as good as a recommendation for a TV show, she can shove it up her ass.
So this is the Kentucky meat shower.
What?
So on the 3rd of March, 1876, in Olympia Springs in Bath County in Kentucky, chunks of flesh started raining down from the sky.
Impossible. It's impossible. This is fiction.
So, according to an article posted in the New York Times, the wife of Alan Crouch. Now remember, it's the 1800s, so she doesn't get a name. She's just the wife of. She was outside making soap when this happened. Quote, the meat, which looked like beef, fell all around her. The sky was perfectly clear at the time, and she said it felt like large snowflakes.
Pieces of beef? Slapping you on the head?
There was meat scattered around the ground and also pieces hanging off of the fence posts. Like, it was just all over the gaff. And it was said to have been fresh meat when it fell.
Okay.
Now, the pieces ranged in size from about 5 by 5 centimetres to 10 by 10 centimetres.
10 by 10 centimetres and felt like snow? I think, piece of meat slapping you across the fucking chops.
I know. Yeah, it's a bit...
It fucking hurt, actually.
It doesn't quite add up. So, 2 fellas showed up to taste the meat and...
What?
Yeah.
They don't know what it is.
I know. But yeah, they came... They showed up and their sophisticated palates determined that it was either mutton or venison. At first, it was thought the meat was from either a horse or a human infant.
Meat doesn't fall from the sky.
Yeah, it doesn't, does it?
No.
So eventually it was determined that it was lung tissue, muscle tissue, and also cartilage from some type of animal, most likely from a sheep.
Or a bird.
So, like, what the fuck? Like, what? So, right, we know what it is. Why did it rain from the sky?
It didn't.
So, at the time, it was newsworthy, obviously, but in reality, the most likely explanation is that the shower of meat... I'm sorry, these words... I wrote this and I'm still like, what the fuck? The shower of meat was caused by the projectile vomit of a vulture from a great height, which is actually apparently something that is common for vultures to do as a self-defense mechanism. So, not some morbid shit prank from Mother Nature, but...
Yeah, but how many pieces of meat are we talking?
Well, they said it was like everywhere.
So it's not like, from a fucking bird?
It was all over... Well, yeah, but what else could it be? That's the most likely thing, no?
10 by 10? And what are we talking, hundreds?
I'm guessing so, yeah. But that's good enough for me. Case closed.
What?
That's good enough for me. Projectile vulture vomit. No? Are you not happy? Do you want to do your own research?
From just one vulture.
Right, okay. So next week we're going to be getting into Angel Resendez, and then Neil is going to follow on with an oddity about the Kentucky meat shower because he's very upset about this.
I knew it was going to be a load of bollocks because she recommended it.
When Melissa first said it to me, she was like, oh, this is something I'm going to do in the podcast and, might be good one for an oddity. And I was like, okay, cool, let me look into it. What the fuck is it? And I'm still like, what the fuck is it? No, I believe them. I believe it was projectile vomit.
Could be Jesus feeding people.
In a pretty fucking grotesque manner, though. No? All right, well, there you go.
All right, well, thank you. And thanks to Melissa, I guess.
Thank you so much for listening. Find us on Patreon, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. If you have a case suggestion, or maybe even your own story, email us at mortalmusingspodcast@gmail.com.